We did testing? You guys did testing before I got on?
Yeah. Well, and I also was
Okay.
testing while we were talking a minute ago. I just didn't
And
take
you're
any.
multitasking. I
Woo!
love it.
One.
All right.
one I
This
was gonna say. I was gonna say one hand on the mouse and one hand on my, and I just started on one. I was one away from starting
With your best friends Trey Sterling and Matt, the film Schmucks.
Did I watch? I had because I'm gonna hammer down on this, but did I watch the right movie? A Clint Eastwood written and directed movie called Unforgiven.
That's
Is that
correct.
the correct movie? Oh God, here we go.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right. All right. Well, welcome to the film Schmucks. My name is Sterling Reigns, the supreme ruler of the show. We got Matty Poo over on the top left, I think, and then we got Hefe Blanca, Trey the Big Long Johnson. I know we have to censor that, but I was gonna go just go for it. Anyway, uh, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for all the subscribers. And today we are reviewing a classic Western called Unforgiven, directed by Clint Eastwood and starring himself. So I think we should go with Trey because he looks like he needs to say something. Trey, what did you think about Unforgiven?
I think real quick overall thoughts. Extremely disappointed. I did not do my homework before we got on today, and I apologize. I wanted to see all of Clint Eastwood's work because I wanted to see if this was one of his first, if not his first, and not really to give him excuses, but just to say that my God, this is one of the worst movies I've seen of his ever. Um, and I think going to like one of his most recent work, Richard Jewell, I thought was one of the best movies of that year. I like Sully. Gran Torino's amazing. We'll talk about everything going forward in this video, but my goodness, very disappointed. I will say I am a how does the movie finish guy. I love up until the last 10 seconds. I love his last 5, 10, 15 minutes. Amazing. We'll talk about it. Great finish for the character, but 97.3% of the movie, whoever's next can go.
Well, fourth week in a row, Trey turns heel. Matt, what do you have to say about that?
I haven't turned heel yet. We'll just wait.
he's about he's 90-degree angle right now. He isn't completely turned, but it took me a second in this movie to adjust to the movie. And what I mean by that is it took me a minute to understand what the movie was doing as far as the like, because when you first watch it, and I haven't watched a Western in a while, and a lot of the Westerns that I've watched have been more stylized or modern. Even though this movie came out in the 90s, it was obviously trying to appeal to classic Western movies. And the way the dialogue was written, at first I was like, what is with some of this dialogue? I was like, this is weird. And I don't know that it fully excuses the dialogue sometimes, but it took me a while to start getting into the movie and realizing, like, well, the dialogue's romantic because this movie is a throwback to classic Western movies. It's supposed to be, it's sort of intentionally. The only thing in this movie that doesn't feel like a classic Western movie really is the cinematography and, the like sort of the quality of it and everything was up to date for the 90s. But it took me a while. I'd say the first 30 minutes I didn't know where it was going. It took me a bit to get invested in the characters and to start feeling like something was happening. And we'll get more into that because there was some pacing stuff that I didn't like. But overall, the second half of the movie made me really appreciate the rest of the movie. So I was glad I watched it at the end. Not an exceptional, crazy, greatest movie I've ever seen, but I've not watched a lot of Clint Eastwood stuff. I've basically just seen clips and stuff from the older movies, so don't know if I've even watched a full Clint Eastwood Western movie anyway. And so for this being a first one, Took me a second to get into it, but by the end, I really liked it.
Yeah, I think I echo more of Matt's thoughts on this. I think I didn't really know much about this going in, but it was kind of clear to me that this movie was definitely more kind of like a swan song type of thing. It definitely felt like kind of a meta type movie where obviously it's a different character and Clint Eastwood has played multiple different characters in different westerns, but it almost kind of felt like this was like an amalgamation of all of his characters, and it's almost like this is Clint Eastwood like going out into the sunset type of thing. Um, and it is kind of like an ending to his overall Western characters that he's played. And so from that perspective, I actually do really appreciate this movie a lot because I think it does a really good job. It does a really good job showing Clint Eastwood's character's arc. He's obviously someone who has had a really rough life, and they reference it a lot that he's done terrible things and even some legendary things as a kind of a scoundrel cowboy. And so to me, that was really interesting. I think the story is okay. I don't think it's a great story, but to me, the characters elevate the movie. I think most of the characters work really well, and especially Clint Eastwood and I can't remember the kid's name, but I really like the kid, the character that was with them. Especially by the end, there's a conversation that they have that I think is brilliant, and I think it's a great moment. But yeah, overall, the movie, I think it, especially if you think about it for like a couple of days, I think it gets better the more you think about it. But I think the story itself is kind of the weakest part, kind of the weakest part, and the pacing overall, I think, is the weakest part. But overall, I think it's a pretty decent Western.
I was gonna say about the story. You know what it feels like is if you just look at the events that happen, it kind of feels like it could be like a little short story, like a little tale, like an old tale of like, something like that they stretched out into a 2-hour movie. Because if you just look at the actual events that happen, all of this stuff could have happened in 30 minutes. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so it does feel a little stretched as far as the story. And I think that's why the story, you're like, okay, it's an okay story. And it does seem like the actors and everyone is what kind of holds it together. Cause there's a lot of dialogue scenes that if you wanted to make a more fast paced movie didn't need to be there. But by the end of it, it's like, well, I appreciated all of those scenes. Like almost any scene with Gene Hackman, like talking was great. I think actually he was the best part of the movie as far as acting. I think he was the best.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think the one thing that I didn't expect, and you kind of mentioned it, Matt, was that it definitely was not. It wasn't a very stylized, like kind of spaghetti western. It was very much kind of a raw western. Very pretty gritty compared to most. And especially like the gunfights. Like I don't know, that gunfight between like Clint Eastwood's group and then versus like the other group that they were going after. And he shoots the guy,
Yeah.
and like they feel bad about it. It's like
Yeah.
it was not a spectacular gunfight. It was like,
Yeah.
oh shit, like this is like we're killing people, and obviously it kind of references it later how taking a person's life isn't just all, it's not glorious. It's very much, it takes a lot out of you. And so yeah, just stuff like that I did not expect, but the more I think about it, the more I appreciate it.
Yeah, the more I think about the first, I don't know how long, it's a 2-hour movie probably. The first hour and 30 minutes, it gets worse for me. I don't know. Just to get into it, I can't tell you how many times I sat here and they would change scenes, and maybe Matt's kind of alluding to the editing's bad, where I'm like, what is going on right now? Because obviously they give you a base, right? The hooer gets cut up and then they're all mad about it. They want to hire some cowboys to hunt these guys down. Whatever. That's a horrible baseline to me. But there was they never explained anything. It was vague throughout. To first with Clint Eastwood's character, his backstory, very vague. We don't find out the details, which are still vague, or well, I guess basically define his character at the end about him killing young children and women. Right? We don't hear we. To me, that's not it's not mystery, like because they kind of like you said, they allude to him being a bad person and his wife changing him. But and I'm not just talking about his character. Like every scene it would cut to, like Gene Hackman, like it would go to him and he beats up some guy, like the British guy. Who's this British guy? Because that British guy comes out on the train and they don't explain his character, and then they beat him up. He has a rider with like. There were so many times, like 4 or 5 times, where I'm like, "What is going on? Why is this happening? What is this happening? Why aren't they explaining anything going on?" But maybe you guys can explain some stuff. But I found myself baffled by how bad the story was being laid out for the audience.
Yeah, I think I mostly disagree. I think
Of
definitely it
course.
didn't. Yeah, I know, but you're not completely wrong about it being vague. Like it definitely doesn't like spell everything out. But I don't know, for me, especially like the British character, like I got his intention. His intention was to show that, initially you thought, oh, this guy's going to be a total badass and like he's going to totally like wreck shop, but no, that's not. He's a character, and in fact, that was the purpose of the guy who was with him, who was writing stories about him. It was very much BS. A lot of it was BS. It was very much uh, stylized, what sensationalized. It was very much sensationalized, and that was kind of the point about it. So that, as far as like what I got out of it, to me, it did enough to make me understand the intention behind like that specific character.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first the first yeah, like maybe half hour, you're introduced to a lot of characters. This is where I actually think the pacing got a little off. Was only well, I guess first I should say I think that you were introduced to a lot of characters and there was a lot going on. I had a hard time keeping track of names until the end of the movie. Even though they tried to do the nickname thing, I was confused about who was what. Like, it took me a while to figure out that Gene Hackman was Little Bill. The only guy whose name
Yeah.
I knew was British Bob or whatever, because he's the only British guy in the movie. But there's just things, like that took a while. By the end of the movie, though, I wasn't confused by the end. It's like I knew what I needed to know by the time things were happening for the story. But it was in I think the thing at the beginning with the pacing, not the very beginning, but maybe, like 30 minutes to an hour in, whenever Ned and Will and the kid are all kind of going on their journey, that's when I started getting into the movie. I was like, we got a team. They're going on an adventure. I like the idea of the kid being really cocky, but he was just kind of overcompensating, That was interesting. But there were times where it cut to British Bob and Gene Hackman, and I realized it's like, man, 20 minutes or something has gone by, and I have not seen the guys that I'm interested in. I'm just seeing other weird stuff happening. And it was almost like maybe they could have cut between the two things, or at least showed a relation between the two quicker. Now, like I said, by the end, you understand everything and it comes together a little better. But at that point in the movie, I was sort of like, I was like, why? I'm like, it felt like it was, I didn't know why I was what was the deal with British Bob and Bill, and why am I watching this, and what's going on?
Yeah.
So it almost like maybe they could have tied those things together a little closer earlier. But it's interesting. I'm thinking about it more, Sterling. You were talking about like even the way the gun shots and stuff was, or the gun scene, and a lot of it was very like real. and like maybe less there was no glamour to it of like maybe there's a lot of times where people just get shot and die that in a normal movie they would have like barely survived or like something like that. It's like even Ned, Morgan Freeman's character, getting killed, he gets killed, you kind of don't expect it. I expected and then the one guy, Davey, the first guy they shot out of the two, he actually, the funny thing about him was he didn't seem like that bad of a guy. He seemed like he just happened to be there with the other guy, his partner, and he was trying to stop his partner from cutting the girl.
Yeah.
And then later he comes back. He's like, "I'm really sorry. Here's an extra horse just for the girl. She can have it." And so then later when they shoot him and he's crawling away, I was like, okay, maybe he's going to survive or he'll have like a moment to talk to Clint Eastwood or something. But then, Clint shoots him in the gut. At first I thought he was lying. Yeah, I shot him in the gut. But then he bleeds out and he dies. And that was what I realized. I'm like, okay, the movie is sort of probably very, in that way, it's got none of the typical, movie theater like glamour of like, no, he barely survives and everyone has a good ending and everyone has it's like, no, this is just kind of like, it is trying to paint this realistic picture of like, hey, sometimes this young guy who kind of just got mixed up with the wrong people dies, and this old guy lives who's killed women and children. And this, it's like, it was this weird way of just looking at things. And I think that was kind of part, actually, as the end of the movie, that's a thing I appreciated about it, because I think if this was a lot more like that with just typical movie, like, well, people get their justice and the good guy lives and this happens and that happens, I think I would have been like, okay, mediocre Western movie. But because it just tried to do something a little different, now it's a memorable movie to me, And that puts it in a category where a lot of people might not like it, but it put it in a category for me where I did like it. So it's one of those little choices that they made that was kind of interesting.
Well, I think you brought up a good point about when about the kid or the younger guy that was with the guy that cut her up, and that's another reason why. That's why another reason why I was so confused and disappointed in the direction or the writing of the movie, because he clearly was trying to stop the guy from hurting that girl, but why was he painted as a bad guy? Like, there's a lot of stuff they did in the film, like. Gene Hackman's character, they didn't explain why he's so anti-gun. Maybe I missed it, but that's just another explanation. But yeah, the kid, why are they trying to kill him? Why did the Hooers think he deserves to be killed? Like, he was there trying to get him off the girl.
That's what I think is the tragedy of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's this guy didn't necessarily do anything wrong. He was just mixed up with the wrong guy. And now he's painted. Now he's got a death. He's got a, he's out for blood.
I'm just saying, I don't get why they thought it was okay, like, for the writing of the movie to have the girls want him dead, because obviously they were all there seeing him trying to stop the guy. Just because he's friends with them or was with him when they got there doesn't mean he should die. I mean, to me that's not tragedy, that's just bad writing to me. Like, I don't get why that was just a mistake, I think, on their part, to make him out to be a bad guy. I mean, but like you said, maybe it was just to show the tragedy. I just think they could have made him not, like, just stand there. Just make him stand there, not try to, then he deserves to die. He maybe not the bad guy because he didn't cut her, but he didn't. He could have helped, and he didn't. But,
I don't see it as I don't see it as bad writing, because most of the time when it would show like the prostitutes, most of the time the conversations and kind of the revenge factor, it was being conveyed from one character, from one of the prostitutes, the kind of the so-called leader of the prostitutes.
Alice.
Yeah, and she would dictate the whole, and from the very beginning, it's very clear that they wrote her as very vindictive, which there are people like that in real life, that it doesn't like, to her, she's trying to protect, and obviously she's probably in the wrong. Like, she should have shown more compassion, of course, and you can kind of see it in a lot of the other prostitutes' faces. They're conflicted, especially when the guy's all trying to be nice and offering the horse, But
The girl with the cut up face was conflicted. The other girl throwing horse poop at him weren't.
yeah, but what I'm saying is that most of it was dictated by one person who was obviously the leader of their group, which that kind of group think does happen in real life. So, yeah, I to me it was a choice, and you can like it or not like it, but that's
And
how I saw
well,
it.
and
So.
I think yeah, there could be a problem there where they could have shown that it was like less obvious that like they could have made it to where even if he wasn't actually cutting the girl up, they could have made it to where the whores made like it was very clear that they thought he did. Like he was also helping cut her up or something. I think that's true because there are a couple of things in the movie that overall on paper make sense. Okay, so two guys go to a brothel, they're partners. A girl ends up getting cut up. It's fine. The way it played out on camera, it was, and I think the biggest thing to me, and tell me what you guys think about this. Now I know the kid, the Schofield kid, when he's talking to Clint Eastwood and he says they cut her up real bad, he's exaggerating to some extent, and they're kind of, he's like they cut off her and her ears and everything, but the way everyone acts about that girl getting cut up, like as if she was brutally mutilated. It did not show they should have done way more special effects or something on her face because it was like me and Christy kept saying it throughout the movie. We're like, she doesn't look that bad. She's got like she might have some scars from it, but the way everyone talks about it in the movie is as if she's brutally disfigured. And it was like there was a weird disconnect where I'm like, I'm sure if you just read, like if this was a book or you just read the script, you would assume she was brutally disfigured. But in the movie, for some reason, they didn't convey it that bad. I didn't get that. I don't know if you guys did, but it's like they kept talking like they cut her eyes and her ears and her tits and everything. And I'm like, she just had some little cat scratches on her face. Like they couldn't put $10 more into makeup. What's going on?
I agree half and half. I mean, they were pretty good at big scars, but they not cat scratches. But yeah, they should have made like big gouges and
something a little more.
Yeah, so I agree with that. Like they should have done a lot more because I think in the movie it was the brothel leader or whatever the guy because he put a bag over your face. Like I think it was just because of her profession. You can't show your face. We gotta charge half price.
That guy might have been my favorite character, by the way, because everything he did had nothing to do with morality. It was always just like protecting his girls or whatever. Like there was something funny about him always coming in and being like, that's all he cared about was like, how am I gonna sell it? No one's gonna want to buy this whore. That was so funny. And then he ends up getting killed brutally, but.
Love it.
Yeah.
Best part of the movie.
Yeah, I think I can see what you're saying, Matt. Like, are you saying that especially when
here's a half and
like
half response?
What?
Well,
I said, here comes a half and half response.
Let me clarify.
Okay.
I'm exaggerating. I'm exaggerating a little bit about cat scratches. She does have some scars on her face, but and I know that the kid, when he's explaining to Clint Eastwood, he's exaggerating. He's like, and that's part of the movie. I don't think that that's like writing, but even other than that, they really act like she's brutally misfigured, and it's like. I know maybe that's it for the profession. It's in that context,
Well, I'm just curious. Like when you're saying that when Clint Eastwood and his group, when they actually like see her, are you saying like it's kind of weird that they act like she's totally disfigured?
Yeah,
everyone
in the movie almost. It's just.
Well,
I think just a little more. Like here's what I mean. It's just like a little more special effects, like maybe a little deeper gouge or something, where she actually looks like. Really like scary disfigured. She still looked pretty. I actually think she was one of the prettiest of all those girls, even with the cuts. So that's why I think it was a disconnect for me, where I just felt like it had more to do with the way they portrayed the makeup than it does the actual writing.
I expected Clint Eastwood to like get pissed at the kid for lying.
Me too.
Like because he exaggerated so much. I thought he was gonna like, look, you're the girl. And he gets like, you told me this. You brought me here with a lie. Like I thought there was gonna be something like that. And
Yeah.
Then yeah, then the death of Ned would have been would have been a good idea to bring in for him to bring Clint's character back because he could have like I'm out of here, right? And because I think at that point they already killed the first guy, right?
Hmm.
Or no?
I think
I'm
so.
not sure,
Yeah.
but like I said, it was weird that they didn't, like you guys are saying, like they never like said anything about how it like he exaggerated. So I agree. Like I expected
Yeah,
a response.
yeah. I think what obviously kind of changed his mind, maybe because he was about to die, and then he saw her as an angel, type figure, I guess. And then they had that really pleasant conversation, and they actually got to know each other, um, and that was kind of a funny scene with
Yeah,
them
yeah.
when
I would
he hasn't
sleep
been
with
with
you, but
a
it's my
woman.
wife. Yeah, I would still sleep with you. It's just with my wife.
Well, I'm wondering what you guys think of this. This movie, the dialogue was, like I said, it was a little weird, the dialogue, but I know that it felt like a stage play kind of sometimes. Now, here's the thing. There are times like when after they kill the second guy and the kid murders for the first time and they have a conversation in the tree, it works really, really well. But there's a lot of times in the movie where it felt like an unintentional comedy. I was like, you could add a laugh track to this sometimes. Like the conversation he has with the girl, I'm like, I don't know if it was supposed to be funny, but it was really funny. And there was even like, and I know there's some stuff that was clearly supposed to be funny because it was some of the way it was written. Like I can't remember, there was some line right before they go and kill the guy in the outhouse. And there was some lines that him and the kid were saying that were making me and Christy laugh. But there's a lot of things in this movie I'm like, is it supposed to be? And I have to bring it up. The scene where the guy, the writer, just pees his pants.
Yeah.
I was shocked when that happened because it even the way they filmed it with a bunch of pee coming out of the leg, it looked like American Pie or something. I felt like I was watching a slapstick comedy for a second. I was like, that was so unexpected to me. Not that he pissed himself, but the way they even portrayed it was like very comedy. And so there's a lot of ways this movie felt like a comedy, but I can't imagine that it was intentionally supposed to be that way.
I think you want to talk about overcompensating. I mean, oh my God, all that piss coming down his leg. Like, I haven't seen that, like, ever. I don't know.
Well, it came out so perfectly. It was already all the way down there.
His pants didn't look stained or anything. It just it looked like he had a little
was
pee
like-
tube ready to.
Well, nobody's gonna know this, but Evan's joke about all the way down the leg.
Yeah.
That's how I get it.
Yeah.
He was already down there.
Yeah.
So stupid.
Yeah.
It didn't soak. It didn't soak his pants. Yeah.
I had a hard time taking
Awkward,
that. I know
awkward
that.
silence.
No, I know that guy was a funny guy in the movie anyway. But it took me a second to realize. I'm like, I've seen this guy somewhere. He's the rabbi in Curb Your Enthusiasm, and so it was really hard for me to take him as a serious character, which he was kind of a funny character, so it was okay. But
I was wondering where he's from. I was like, this guy looks like from Seinfeld
How
or
do you
something.
yeah.
How do you not remember? That's like one of your favorite shows, Sterling. Interesting.
Hey, I don't remember the hundreds of characters from that show.
Yeah, it was a side. He's like a side character in it, but he plays a rabbi in that at one point. I just watched the episode recently. That's how I remembered it.
Okay. Okay, I did ask this earlier. Did I miss something? Did they ever explain why there's a rule or law in the city of giving up your firearms? Because that Gene Hackman character was all about giving up your weapon, and once they did, beating the crap out of them. I'm like, what? So that was another confusing, out of the left field thing that was happening.
Yeah, I don't know. They didn't I don't remember them explicitly saying it, but it was
Yeah.
something that I don't know. Maybe that was. He
Well,
obviously
that was
had
part
a
of his
power.
backstory, I think.
He obviously had some kind of power play thing going on, so maybe that was part of it.
Yeah, because I think they kind of like he knew British Bulldog Bill or whatever that guy's name is, and he knew who. Eventually, I thought they were gonna have that moment where in the bar when Clint Eastwood stood up and his hat came up, or like that was the moment they would like have a standoff. I thought that was the first conflict. So disappointment there.
Yeah.
But he only knew him by name later. But I guess it was 10 years, so he could look a little different. But so they never explain a lot of stuff about the Gene Hackman character, about why he likes beating people up with guns or wanting to give up their guns, stuff like that. Like another like thing that was annoying me. Like It's one of many things they
It,
just never
Well,
explain.
to me, I think his reasoning was more. It kind of came out of the conversations that he had with the writer, in my opinion, because he kind of talked about his mentality against like criminals, and to me that was his motivation. It seemed like he had a history with a lot of these criminals, like really bad history, and so he probably, as a rule, he wanted to just lay the law down in his jurisdiction, and so that's probably the overall motivation behind that rule of no guns. So
I think he was
that's how.
And
also maybe he was insecure or something. Like there were certain times where you got the feeling that maybe he wasn't the best shot or something. Like they played it up like he was with the Bob thing, but I feel like once he learned the guy was the writer, he was trying to portray himself as that. But when it came down to it, him and Clint Eastwood in the bar, he had a chance to kill Eastwood, and he still was too slow to the draw. Because he was talking about how fast he was, or whatever. And maybe the reason
he's
he didn't,
efficient. He
yeah,
wasn't fast. He was efficient.
efficient. Okay, yeah. And so I don't know what maybe that's what maybe he was insecure about speed or something, and he because he was talking about how keeping a cool head. But I think maybe he doesn't want the enemies to have a gun because I don't know. Maybe it was something where he was actually afraid if it was a standoff or one-on-one gunfight, he wouldn't,
You both. So what Sterling said before that, and like good explanation, Sterling, and you too, Matt. I just wish the movie would portray it, put it in the script. Like, don't let us think about, well, maybe this is what the character's thinking. Maybe this is what this meant. And when he said this, like,
Well,
I don't need it.
yeah.
Movies are meant like you have 2 hours to give a story that is able for us to connect with and to understand. And if you're just gonna be vague and walk away from it, like I said, because of how they edited it, because they just cut away with a lot of stuff. I'm like, that's why I just
Well,
obviously the ending wasn't really about writing; it was about we find out who the true villain is in the whole
yeah.
movie, which is we can get to that at the very end, but.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I just wish what they did was what you guys said.
Well, I know what you
Explain
mean.
that.
I think that what it is though is like this is where it comes down to taste, because I like when movies are more vague. I like Christopher Nolan movies a lot, like Memento and what's the recent one? Tenet. I like that kind of stuff. I like thinking about it and having the conversations. Well,
Me
what do you
too.
think this guy was? So, but I'm saying that if they would have been more clear, here's exactly Gene Hackman's backstory. Here's exactly what happened. Here's a flashback. Here's this.
saying that.
I wouldn't have liked it as much. So but I'm not saying that makes
It
it
was
good
too
or
vague.
bad.
I'm just saying it. I agree with you. I do like those movies. Obviously, I love Tenet. I wish it was way too vague.
Okay.
Way too
But
vague.
that's what I mean
to
by
me.
taste, because I thought it was great exactly how it was. So it's just
But
one
I'm
of those
saying
things.
I like Tenet. Like maybe you like really. So you're saying you like very vague stuff. You like to
Well, it
make
depends on the movie.
imagine.
But
And it's you like to
I
like that's like an ending to a movie. Like you like to interpret it your own way.
it depends on the movie, but yeah, like I think Blade Runner's cool because it has
Okay.
an ending like that. I think like
Okay.
Inception has like an ending like that. There's movies like that
Okay.
that have interesting things. I like the discussion about it. There could be movies where I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on, and I'm not enjoying this too. So, but
Okay.
I'm just saying,
Okay.
like Unforgiven particularly, this is a movie where it's like I liked how it played out that I didn't necessarily need to know. I knew just enough about these
Okay.
different characters that I can kind of, tell why
Yeah.
there's
I,
this stuff.
I wanted to get into the characters, but like every time I like got into like Gene Hackman, I did like the scene with him beating the crap out of the British guy because that was a vague thing. Like why is like they knew each other obviously, and he confronts him to take his guns, and then he beats him up. Like maybe you said he's scared of someone having a weapon because they'd have an advantage over him. Because then he starts beating the guy up.
Yeah.
So I like that part. It just the cutaway, and there was too many of those things where I got into it and it pulled me out. So maybe I was trying too hard to get into it, maybe, but because the beginning was a little slow for me, but Yeah, I agree. I see what you're saying about, not needing it all written out for you. I get that. And just to me in this movie, it just
Yeah.
happened way too often.
Well, and I would agree that it's hard to actually connect with some of the characters because you didn't really get to know them very well. And the funny thing is, Gene Hackman, we're talking about Gene Hackman being a vague character. He probably had the most like real dialogue and stuff with other characters, and yet it was still vague. So I see what you mean. Like,
Yeah.
we're trying to get to know the characters, and it's harder to get to know the characters that way.
Yeah. I mean, to me, like, could I have used maybe a scene with Clint Eastwood and his wife? You know, could I have used that? Yeah, I probably. But looking back on it, I think I kind of like the fact that we didn't get any of that because we were just getting one side of him for most of the movie, and to me, the buildup of him trying to be kind of a cleaner person, and then him by the end becoming that more of that scoundrel that he used to be, to me, that payoff kind of made it worth it. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think I'm not sure. Like it could go either way. I guess. Like I guess I could have definitely used more like motivation, maybe with Gene Hackman's character. Even though I kind of gave some explanation, I probably could have used more. But I just kind of
Well,
take it as I see it, and that's why I think the story. That's why I think the movie is like pretty good. Like I don't think it's like a great movie, but I just think it's like a pretty decent film.
uh,
So
okay, sorry if I'm interrupting anybody who had an idea, but so the guy he beats up the guy, the British guy, he specifically knew him. They knew each other. He takes the guns, beats him up, because he didn't like him before. So to agree, kind of partially agree with you, Sterling. Just one scene, like I said, I was expecting Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman when he stood up and the bill of his cowboy hat came up and the connected eyes. Then they like, did you like they were like big enemies. Like I know it would be small world kind of thing, but that scene could have been so much better because he finds the gun in his holster, like the one because I don't have a gun, I don't blah blah blah. It's for snakes, and he beats him up. But I thought he beat the other guy up because he hated him and he's a bad guy. How does Gene Hackman know guy is a bad guy? Because he didn't. Because he found out later he's a guy that killed women and children later. So that scene could have set up the rest of the movie with them knowing each other and you're the one that killed this guy or what you were at whatever because he had a fake name. But if they would have recognized each other, that could have been the scene that you're kind of alluding to that could have happened in the movie. So that's all I was looking for that scene because in that moment I was like, oh, he's gonna stand up, they're gonna lock eyes, and here we go. He's sick, he's strong. The other guy's in a strong position. What's gonna happen? Because I was expecting him to get beat up like he did, and he's gonna come back for revenge. But instead, it was him killing his buddy and then him coming out back for revenge. So I was expecting that scene that you were kind of explaining.
yeah, no, I see what you're saying. But yeah, I don't know. Do we want to talk a little bit about maybe kind of the conversation between the Schofield kid and Clint Eastwood's character?
Is it the one about them at that tree? The tree waiting for the girl and the money? Is that the talk you're talking about?
Oh, well, I mean we could talk about that. I was talking more towards the end when Schofield kid like is conflicted about how he killed that guy and that conversation.
That is the same
That's
scene.
the scene.
Wait. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. That is the same scene. Sorry, I was thinking about another scene. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So
Another scene
is the
where
one
they're under the tree waiting for the girl to bring the money? Excuse me?
No,
bacon powder?
No. I was talking to for some reason I thought about the scene where they're in the cabin and they're like in that forest area when Clint Eastwood is about to wake up from the coma.
I see what you're saying.
Sorry,
you're talking about Ned.
So what scene are you talking about? That's a great scene or a great conversation. Which one are you talking about? Because you mentioned that before.
Yeah,
the one you just mentioned. Yeah,
basically right before the final shootout.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I because obviously so that one they kind of that was where they weren't vague because he's like sitting there like drinking. You assume
I
like that
love
was
that
his
he
first
starts.
kill.
Yeah, I love that he starts. The kid's drinking. I love it when Clint Eastwood, as soon as he figures out Ned's dead, he just starts drinking.
Yes.
They don't even make
This
a
like
big.
this is what
That's
the
they were subtle about it. They didn't just. They didn't show him like looking at it real dramatic and drinking it. He just starts
he
drinking
just
it while
grabbed
they're
it.
talking.
Yep.
I was like, oh, that was good. And then you see the empty bottle thrown on the ground into town.
Yeah. In the rain. See, that's where the movie starts
That's what I
for
was,
me. I can. You
yeah,
just,
yeah.
that's where that's Matt. You said this could be like a short movie. That's it. They do like a quick scene about
You could have,
them
yeah.
killing up the guy.
It could have been a
This could have
short
been a
film.
great 20.
Just start like
Yeah, 20 minute.
start right at them killing the guy, and then the kid having like
Yes.
the thing about it, and then maybe a
Yes.
little bit of exposition like about him drinking or whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
But no, yeah, that
We get to
to me that conversation, the cinematography, they're under the tree, him figuring out Ned, the drinking, and that whole final scene. That is, I feel like even if you don't like the rest of the movie, that part to me is like just so good. It just encapsulates the
No,
best parts of the whole thing. It's
that's what I
There's so
said in the
many.
beginning. Like the last 20 minutes is great.
There's several good lines in that scene too. Like, it's a hell of a thing killing a man, and
yeah.
like death comes for all of us, or something like that. I can't
Well,
remember
there's the
exactly what it
one
said.
where the kid says, he talks about he kills him and he's like, well, I guess those two deserved it though. And then Clint Eastwood just looking off in the sunset, we all deserve it, kid, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
woo! He had some good, like classic Clint Eastwood kind of badass lines.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
And he becomes straight up vicious, like when he goes into town. I mean,
Well, that's what he said in the beginning. So something they did kind of set up in the beginning, saying, "I was drunk then. I drank and then basically saying that's what he did was he drank and killed people. So that's why I liked it. He immediately started drinking. His friend's dead. He starts drinking, and the rain starts, and he throws the bottle. We see the empty bottle, and then obviously he gets in there and he just kneels to one leg because they all draw on him, and he's a perfect shot because they show in the beginning too. He
Yeah.
can't hit the broadside of
that
the
was
barn
fun.
with a
Yeah,
pistol.
when he gets the shotgun out to shoot that, and the
Yeah.
kids are just
Yeah.
looking at him. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
do
I just love
think
how
there
that
was a
set up.
lot of intentional comedy in the movie. I mean, there were some that was just because the dialogue was a little goofy, but I do think it was supposed to be funny a lot of times. Clint Eastwood couldn't get on his horse, and at first you're like, this is funny, but they kept calling back to it because after they kill the guy in the outhouse, and they're like, we need to get out of here, and they're running away, and then Clint Eastwood's still trying to get on his damn horse. It's like circling around. I'm like, can this guy just climb his dang horse?
So maybe I've been saving my positives to the end, but another positive thing that they did was they set up they early on. You don't realize it until we after see the whole thing because he mentions that because he's talking to the horse and whoever's listening. Like I was bad to the animals back in the day. That's why he won't let me on the horse because the first time when he's going in circles with the kids standing there watching him. And hey kids, that's what you learn by your mother. Yeah, she taught me the right thing. Don't be bad to animals. And he rides off. Like if you got to look back at that scene. That was the establishing he is a bad person. Like or was a bad person. Like that to me was the one where like damn he was bad. He was hitting animals, beating them. Like what an a-hole,
Yeah. It's cruel. They're getting back at me.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's what they're getting back at me. God, they won't let me on. Like he couldn't get on.
I think you're just a
Yeah.
dipshit. Can't get on a horse. Just waiting for the kid to say that. He's like,
Yeah.
it's just good.
One real quick thing was when they're all on the horses and near the beginning and they're venturing off to Wyoming, where the gunshot happens and I think where the kid was trying to kill him and he can't hit him because they find out he's blind, kind of from a long distance. But when Clint Eastwood, the actual Clint Eastwood, I think, and the horse, bucks up and he's gonna he could have died filming this movie like. Christopher Reeve paralyzed,
Yeah.
like I'm like, dang, like that was crazy. Him falling off that horse like he did. Like it's like, woo,
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood is a badass. Even because he was in his 60s then, he's 90 now, but
Woo.
he's been a badass forever.
Yeah.
Like, damn.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I really appreciated this. It's because Clint Eastwood he had to have some variety in his performance, and I think he did a really good job showing like kind of two sides of him.
I
Kind of the person who you know used to be a lot more of something else, but then he's trying to become a better person. But when he tries to get back on the horse, so to speak, like it's so difficult for him to get back into the swing of things. But then by the end, becoming that badass, to me, it was very believable. And that's a credit to his performance. And I think the dialogue overall, too.
I I was gonna say, I think, like, Trey was talking about doing the homework a little bit. I'm like, this does feel like a movie. Having not watched a lot of the classics, like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and all of that, it it does. There were certain times, like when he first is trying to get on the horse. I imagine that would have been a real funny moment in the theater because people are probably watching, oh, here's Clint Eastwood, he's older now. Like kind of like when you watch like Expendables or something now and Sylvester Stallone's doing something. There is a certain amount of it that I feel like context matters a little bit, where maybe if you had watched all these old Clint Eastwood movies, he takes a break from doing this kind of Western for a while, and then you're watching, oh, Clint Eastwood, and then part of the movie is like, this is Clint. We have Clint Eastwood in a Western movie, and the guy can't even shoot a gun, and he's like can't get on a horse. Like, there's probably something where maybe with all that context, maybe that stuff it would have been even more exciting. But I think even just watching it without the context, it is cool. So you're seeing this guy, like groveling around, he can't get on a horse, and then become this ultimate badass at the end of the movie is very satisfying.
Yeah. And I wanted to get this quote correctly because I think this was my favorite quote of the whole movie. But it's the same conversation under the tree, and he says, "Funny thing, killing a
Which
man."
one?
I know, I fucked that up, didn't I? No, the very last conversation, and he says, "Funny thing, killing a man. You take away everything he's got, everything he's gonna have," and I
Yeah.
Yep.
think that fits so well into the overall theme of the movie, which is, again, the West that you thought about, the glamorous side, the gunslinging, the sensationalism of all of it. That's not what life is about, let alone the Wild West, And I think that particular line encapsulates that so well, and I think that's why it's my favorite.
That's a great line.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
understanding what it is, his past, kind of him like kind of going over his what he deserves, kind of thing too, like and what he's done, and it kind of having flashbacks of all the people he's killed, and like what have I taken from people, kind of thing. And
Yep.
and when he so let's talk about this the saloon, the end of the end saloon scene where he drinks. So he obviously is not going to get drunk right away, but he swigs that whole bottle on his way to town, and he gets in there, and a great scene too, because Gene Hackman's is doing like his "Who's Your" speech, like
Yeah.
getting everybody riled up to go hunt down everybody. Like, you're gonna go do this. We're gonna get these boys and bring them back to town. And I love how they just show the barrel of the gun. Like, he walks in, and then the
Yeah.
rider sees him, and they all and the women see him, and they all turn, and everybody goes. It's silent, and he slowly brings the barrel down, and who runs this? Like, that whole scene is so good. And jump in wherever you want, but like obviously we talked about earlier, the owner getting just blasted. Like,
Yeah.
you just got an innocent man. Like, I don't know if he was that innocent, but
Yeah. I think no, that whole thing, like, I thought when he's at the tree and he starts drinking, I'm like, ooh, we're gonna get a little revenge. And I was like, I wonder how he's gonna do it. Is he gonna come up is he gonna sneak in? Is he gonna go in the back? Is he gonna plant dynamite? What are we talking here? And him just walking
Yeah.
straight in was just like unexpected in the best way, because you're like, man,
Yeah.
he
He
had
took on
nothing to lose.
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I thought
and
he was gonna get shot or die, and the fact that he became this, and it was fear. It was like the prowess of him as this character that he probably would have died, but it was the fear he put into everybody, because he just has them all leave. It's like, anyone else who doesn't want to die can leave out the back. And I started laughing when they all just start walking out the back. I was like, man, this is the original boogeyman. I mean, this is John Wick in the old West.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Go ahead.
Gene, well, they show Gene's like fear,
Yeah.
like because he's like looking at him, and he like slowly puts his hand on his gun, but he's like you said, he's maybe that's deep down something like he's not good at it, like what are you doing here? You just killed an unarmed man. He's like trying to yell, trying to like kind of doing a roaring match like lions do or whatever, but.
Yeah.
And I forgot what instilled the shoot, like the who shot the first. Oh, when the misfire, which was great.
Yes, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. That was
he's
great
about to
too.
kill. Tick, misfire. Get her,
Yeah,
boys.
yeah.
And he just goes on one knee, and they don't shoot him once. Like you said, Boogeyman, and I guess John Wick got shot a couple
Gene
times.
Hackman's the only one
he
who
had an
tries to
armor
shoot,
vest.
and I think misses him, right?
No,
Yeah.
they everybody shoots at him. All those sheriffs
Well,
are shooting at him.
yeah. Well, I
Okay.
remember the first shot where I think Gene Hackman does shoot first, and then luckily Clint Eastwood like bends down, avoids it, and
Yeah,
then
that's
he
what.
shoots back. Yeah, yeah.
Well, he
And then he
shoots
hits.
him in the gut. Yeah, shoots
Yeah.
him in the gut because he goes on one knee, shoots him in the gut, and they're all shooting, and you can see it
Yeah.
all hitting around him. And he gets
Yeah.
bang,
You're
bang,
right,
gets the
yeah.
fat guy, bam, gets that guy, bam, like because he could shoot a broadside of the barn earlier, and now he's just hitting everything. Like,
Yeah.
I love that scene so much.
It
And he
was so
goes over
cool.
and he drinks some more, and you can
Yeah.
see that Gene's still alive, and the rider is like, and the guy that was a coward that didn't want to shoot anything, the other sheriff, he runs out and he gets shot in the back, and we find out the rider's underneath him, and he pushes him, and he's like, I'm shot, which is a great thing
Oh,
too.
that was great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's like, you're not shot. You know what? Did you guys think when
Yeah.
he said when he's like,
Mhm.
I'm unarmed, I don't have a gun, and Clint Eastwood was
Yeah.
like, pick up that rifle. I really
Yep.
thought he was gonna pick the gun up and then like shoot him. Like, well, you're not
Bam.
unarmed now,
Yeah.
So I was kind of
Yes.
like, but yeah, when he leaves, go ahead.
Oh no. Hold that thought, because I was just gonna say, as far as like editing and just the way you had to execute that scene, like if that wasn't executed the way it was executed, that would have been a disappointment. But
Yeah.
to me, they saved the best for last in terms of
Mhm.
just pacing and editing, and like I'm so glad that they executed that well, because otherwise, yeah, that would have not been as good. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I took out of it too.
Yeah.
Also, I just wanted to say that I think the initial, two shots between Gene Hackman and Clint Eastwood, I think that, in my opinion, I think it was a good callback to what Gene Hackman was talking about. Like, it's not the quickest trigger that usually wins a gunfight. It's the coolest head. It's the one that
Yeah.
Mhm.
is the most calm. And it was due to alcohol, but Clint Eastwood's character was definitely like, he had the mentality of just being the predator. He was calm as fuck. And so I think it was just a good callback to the conversation earlier in the film.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
I think that whole sequence is great. And then even when he goes outside and he's like, see,
Oh
I
yeah.
wouldn't have even thought about it if he would have just left. So I was glad that they actually did think about that. It's like, well, all those guys who were inside are going to be outside probably waiting. And him just going, I'm going to come out now. Anybody I see, I'm going to kill. And if anyone takes a shot at me, I'm going to kill them and their wife and their friends and burn their house down. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God. And it worked too. No one even took a shot at him. And it was
Yeah.
cool seeing the writer, because it's funny. The writer's following Bob, British Bob, right? And he's like, oh, this guy's got all these great stories. And then he follows Little Bill, and he's like, this guy's got even better stories. And then he runs into Clint Eastwood. He's like, this guy, I'm living the story. Like, it's happening, right? You could see he's just like, he's part of it at that moment, as opposed to it just being some history. That's why he's like, who did you shoot? And when did you shoot who? It's like, you shot this guy first, right? It's like he actually witnessed the guy being a badass, as opposed to just hearing the stories. It's like, this guy's a true badass.
He's the duck. He's the duck of
Yeah.
of Wyoming.
That was funny. Can we not? Yeah, let's talk about that. Not the not being able to read, but let's talk about how Gene Hackman's character, or Little Bill, right? Is that his name?
Yeah.
How Little Bill enslaves the writer. he puts because the writer's in jail, right? So they're in the cell, and that's a good scene. They talk. We get a little bit of backstory. We get a little bit of storyline about what's going on, and he just brings the writer under his arm, brings him into his house. Hey, write this, and I think
Yeah,
at one
yeah,
point he got mad about because the writer made a joke. He's like,
yeah,
"What do you say?" And I'm like, this guy straight up has a writing slave, like a poet slave. Like, what in the world's going on?
yeah.
Like he enslaved him. Like what in the world? The writer was not willingly following him. It's not how I looked at it. Like the guy was like, "You're coming with me. Let's. I'm gonna tell you what really happened. Come
Yeah,
on, buddy."
yeah, yeah. That was a funny like little relationship they had.
He was coerced, yeah. It wasn't
Yeah, yeah.
uh
Oh, the gun. So when he gave him the gun, I thought there was no bullets. I thought he was gonna pull the trigger and there was gonna be no bullets. And that was a great scene because he when the British guy didn't take the gun to shoot him, he's ready. He wanted because we find out he wanted him to take the gun, and
Yeah,
he opens the thing up and the bullets fall out, and the British guy's like, "Oh my God, what'd I do?" He's like, "You're right, buddy. I would have killed you." Like that was awesome too.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I
That was
hated
cool.
that character, but that was a great line
He was
by
a
a
great,
character.
yeah, yeah. He was like you hate him, you love him because you hate him because he was just a good character.
Yeah,
and I wanted to mention real quick. I know it's kind of a given, but Morgan Freeman I think does a really good job in this movie too. Like I think he does a
Yeah,
really good job being that kind of I mean he's kind of a voice of reason maybe. I mean he's just a good partner overall
he,
to Clint Eastwood's character.
he's
And
he's always a
I was
good
sad.
compliment in every movie. Have you noticed? He plays a great complimentary character where like you add Morgan Freeman to the movie, it always just adds a little bit of spice to
Yeah.
it.
I was genuinely sad when he
Mhm.
died. Like I was
Yeah.
really sad.
Dude,
I was bummed out.
yeah, I got anxious whenever because I already knew what was happening. As soon as they start going, we found one. He was heading south. I was like, oh
yeah,
man. I was like, they got him, and I kind of was hoping that they would go and rescue him, and that would be the big finale. So it was
yeah,
pretty crazy. It sucked, and then they're whipping him and all that, and you're like, oh man. It just
Yeah.
de-escalated from there, or
Yeah.
escalated, depending on how you want to look at it.
I guess sure.
Got
Speaking of
it.
escalation, do you want to give some final thoughts? I can start out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else you guys wanted to mention? Just wanted to put out there.
Oh, I
No.
have
No
one.
nitpicks.
No, I do have a nitpick.
Okay.
I already did a couple of them, but I do have one nitpick, which is they found Ned. Now, obviously, they made it seem like they knew Clint Eastwood's character because he was this crazy outlaw, right? And Ned obviously
Yeah.
had a history of doing some stuff too. But they never acted like they knew who Ned was. So if Ned is, I mean, maybe this is contextual, like you said, small world, but Ned's just heading south on the road, like they just pick him up. He must be one of the three guys. Why?
Yeah.
Couldn't it have just been, could anybody be coming down that road and they would just stop anyone and assume that they're one of the three people? It was weird. I'm like, that was one nitpick I had where it was like, there was no indicator. It just, as far as we know, they just picked up a random guy on the road and assumed he was one of these three guys, you know? So that was a little bit of a nitpick.
Yeah.
I think that's. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I guess the only thing is there was witnesses, but again, it didn't really make it clear that there were
There's
witnesses.
no defense. There's no defense of this story. Don't even try.
Hey,
No, I'm just kidding. Well, if they knew they would have recognized Clint Eastwood. Well, you're right. The witnesses, because they went and they had some fun at the whorehouse.
yeah,
Which that was
Well,
kind of,
they-
by the
yeah,
way, another
that's
funny
true.
scene. Another funny
That's
scene that was when he was like, I'm gonna head up and go check on the kid or whatever. He's like, you wouldn't mind if I take a little time to myself now, would you?
So
And I was like,
weird.
what the?
Yeah.
I was
That's what he
laughing.
said. Comedy. It's a guy. Yeah,
It's kind of
an
a it's
unintentional
kind of
comedy.
a comedy.
Maybe some
Anyway,
free ones.
I think
Yeah.
that was the one nitpick I think I had. That I wanted to mention. The rest of them I think we went over.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the
Well,
people, let's add to that. The people that picked them up would have had to have been at the bar to witness the three of them being together, and that he was
Yeah, it
like,
looked like they banged the whores and then left. And I don't
yeah,
think
I
anyone
don't,
saw them. Maybe the people, yeah, I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah, I agree. It was weird.
I mean, look, Morgan Freeman does stand out in the movie, if you know what I mean. So maybe that was it. Let's be clear.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's very vague. But anyway, I was just going to give the what?
I was just kidding.
What?
I
I
was
just
just
said.
kidding. I know. I
Okay.
was just kidding.
Every time, okay, not every time, but a lot of times you guys always give me looks whenever I like say like something. I don't
I
know.
do.
It's
Okay,
just
no, I do it to Trey too. I mean, Trey can confirm. Whenever you guys say, you'll say certain things, and if it's the end of a sentence, I always go.
yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
why I do that, but anyway.
It's every time I try to show some agreement. Okay, I know I'm playing both sides. I know nostalgia is real. Is going to come after me for playing both sides. Okay,
Nostalgia
I'm
is
ready for that comment.
Nostalgia is real, by the way. They need to change the name. Nostalgia is missing because I don't know where this guy went. We haven't seen him for 3 videos.
What happened to him? Jeez.
Yeah. All right. Overall thoughts. Final thoughts. I think this movie is pretty good. I think it has an okay plot, but I think the characters, the overall theme, and I think a lot of really good dialogue, I think elevates the movie quite a bit. And the more I think about it, especially kind of the ending, the last act, I like it. I like it more the more I think about it. And I think it was a good kind of swan song type of movie for Clint Eastwood's kind of overall career in Western films. And I really liked his overall arc in the movie. Um, and I haven't seen a whole lot of westerns, but I expected kind of more sensationalist, kind of stylistic western in this particular film, but I got something kind of completely different. And sometimes that may not work, but I think in this case it did work for me overall. And I'm glad I watched it. I think definitely it's not for everyone. I don't think this is a particular. It's not really a family film, and I don't think I don't think it has universal appeal. But I think if you have maybe a little bit of context behind the film, maybe do a little research, or not even do any research at all. I think you could, if you appreciate kind of more raw storytelling, I think you could appreciate this film, and that's what I took out of it, and I'm glad I watched it. So yeah, that's kind of my overall thoughts.
You want to
Um,
go last or me last?
I can go if you want. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, I mean, I think I echo a lot of that same stuff. Like, it's a movie that I think I'll rewatch at some point because I think it's one of those things where I probably would appreciate the first half of the movie more after seeing the second half and understanding. But also that it's one of those movies where the second half of the movie really made me like the stuff that I was confused about at first, not even confused, but just as far as the actual film, just being a little like, I don't know about this, or the dialogue's a little weird, or whatever it was. I think that the end of the movie to me maybe ended up being better because of the first half of the movie. I do think it probably didn't need to be 2 hours. It probably could have been more like an hour and 40 or something like that, or an hour 45. But I'll just take it as it is, I guess. And that's the only thing for me was sometimes it took a little while for the movie to get going. And maybe that's the point of this one. But there's some movies where it's a little bit slow burn, and that's the whole point, and the whole movie's kind of like that, or that's how it goes. This movie, I just felt like it didn't quite have to be as slow as it was at certain points. But other than that, I mean, it was really cool. It makes me want to watch more Clint Eastwood movies. So I guess that's the best I can say about it. It stood out to me as being, and the ending, I think the ending to me, I mean, brought it way up. I mean, that just that 15, 20 minutes does make make it a memorable film to me, just that sequence. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have much else to add, but I think that I would say check out the movie if you're in the right mood for like a Western, but also keep in mind it's like it is, because I thought, because it's a 90s movie, so I was like, oh, this is going to be like Tombstone or Young Guns or something. I thought it was going to be that type of real action-oriented movie, and it's really just it feels like this movie could have came out in the 60s. It's like if you were to take a 60s Clint Eastwood movie with modern cameras, or not modern, but 90s level era like quality in camera and cinematography. That's what it felt like. So it's sort of, once I kind of got myself into that mindset, then I enjoyed it a lot more. So I think it's worth checking out.
All right.
I agree with a lot of what you said about how it's really slow in the beginning, and that's like partially why I think the movie kind of starts at the tree with the kid after the kid killed the last guy, and they have a great talk. Or not really great, but a good dialogue. And we learn more about the characters a little, more. But yeah, just overall disappointed because I was expecting what I got the last 25 minutes throughout the film, and I absolutely love the finish of the character. Like learning that cause I think there's two bad guys in this movie with Little Bill, and he's the jerk. He's a big jerk, and we learn to hate him, and we've come to find out he was a mirage. The real bad guy is Clint Eastwood's character. He killed women and children, and apparently beat animals and killed animals, and he comes in there guns blazing and kills everyone. And to me, that's a twist, and I love the twist. So I love the ending of this film. I love that he's the bad guy and he lives, and he gets to walk off the sunset with his kids. And I may never watch this movie again. I can say I won't watch the movie again. But I think I was in my mind was kind of disagreeing with Matt. But as I say this, that is a memorable moment. I will never forget how good the finish of this movie was, and for that I do appreciate watching this movie to see that ending, and even though the disappointment from the beginning, but great ending to the movie. Bad guy wins. I love it.
You want to sign us off? On that note.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
No. Oh, what's the Razor Ramon's quote? What do you want? I was gonna say the bad.
I am the bad guy, or something like that.
I'm the bad guy. I want everything in the world, the world, and everything in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what are you guys talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
Razor Ramones. Oh, baby. The N, the W, O.
Oh, okay.
Wrestling.
I thought you were talking about a
Ramon, oh my
movie.
gosh.
I didn't hear what you said, and I was like, what? Are you guys talking about a Bond movie or something? What is this?
I thank God Sterling he backed me up because I heard, did he just say I'm the bad guy? Like, yeah. So, the bad guy wins, baby. Yes, I love it. So, okay. Hey, I would not recommend this movie. But as Matt said, if you're into
Got in the video that way.
This is what I feel. But if you're up to a Western, go for it. If you want to wait, an hour and 47 minutes to get to the good part, be my guest. But thank you for watching. Comment below. We love the interactions. We love people talking crap on the comments. It's any comment is a positive. So comment, subscribe, like the video, and we'll see you next time on the Film Schmucks.
Got it.